Arthur Abraham versus Martin Murray. Let me just give some brief insights as to this fight and how I see it going. Martin Murray is a guy who I honestly believe is slightly overrated and who has been flattered by recent performances. For me, Martin Murray is a guy who has a good, solid skill set. You know, he is a solid operator. I'm not saying he's a poor fighter, but he's someone who I view as British level, European level. He's someone who I view as equivalent to kind of a Paul Smith or a Tony Bellew. You know, that sort of level of fighter. I always thought that whilst he did have some skills, he did better at 160 than most because of his size. I thought that his size and his strength at the weight was a real asset, and at times he was fighting guys who looked a weight class below him. I mean, if you look at that famous fight now where he fought Gennady Golovkin, I genuinely felt that Martin Murray was really the big man in the ring on that night, and I do think that assists. I am not 100% convinced he's going to be as useful at super middleweight as he has been previously at middleweight. Obviously that size advantage will be gone, stepping up in weight. I think Martin Murray's always been known as a light puncher. I mean, don't let the recent string of early knockouts and the biased Sky commentary sway you otherwise. Martin Murray is not a big puncher. And at 168 pounds, where the guys are bigger, stronger, tougher, and more used to taking big punishment, I don't see Martin Murray getting stoppages at the elite level. Now, Arthur Abraham is a guy who is a likeable fighter. One thing I'd say about Arthur Abraham is he knows his value fighting in Germany. Obviously, we've had the Paul Smith fights, and we've seen him fight the likes of Felix Sturm, Robert Stieglitz multiple times. He's a guy who, of late, having fought Carl Frotz earlier on in his career, seems to be preferring to stay in Germany, to fight at home, to fight in a market where there's a lot of support for him and a lot of demand for him, and potentially to be facing lower level of opposition. And I think that's what Arthur Abraham is viewing Martin Murray as. A lower level of opposition, a relatively easy defence, and someone that he can take out. Arthur Abraham is not a superb technician. There are ways to beat Arthur Abraham. We saw Carl Frotz give him a boxing lesson when they fought. And for me, Arthur Abraham is some way below the Carl Frotzes and Andre Wards of this world. But he's got his style, he's perfected it, and he's very good at doing what he does. He keeps his hands very high. He's extremely durable. He's got a very good chin. And he fights in bursts. What we saw with him against Paul Smith was maybe Paul Smith slightly outworking him, but when Arthur Abraham was landing, he was landing eye-catching shots. He was efficient with what he was throwing. What he was throwing was eye-catching. What he was throwing was accurate. What he was throwing was scoring. And even though at 168 Arthur Abraham doesn't appear to be a stunning knockout artist like he was at 160, he's a hurtful puncher. In terms of this fight, genuinely, I have to pick Arthur Abraham by points. Martin Murray's a tough, durable guy, and as I've already mentioned, Arthur Abraham, he perhaps isn't the puncher at 168 as he is at 160. Martin Murray can move, Martin Murray can box on the back foot. Martin Murray's going to be able to put more distance between himself and Arthur Abraham than he was able to against Gennady Golovkin. And for that reason, I see Martin Murray lasting the 12. I also see him being able, at times, to look good in the fight. At times, he's going to be able to be the more active fighter against Arthur Abraham. At times, he's going to be able to put punches together as Arthur Abraham stands up and keeps his hand high. I do think Martin Murray will perform with credit. Don't be surprised if this fight in many ways resembles the Paul Smith fight, as I view those as similar type of fights. I really do. It wouldn't even surprise me if Arthur Abraham won in controversial fashion, like arguably he did in the first Paul Smith match. Realistically though, when it comes down to eye-catching punching, eye-catching combinations, hurting your opponent, I think that's going to be Arthur Abraham's forte, and not Martin Murray. Martin Murray, despite improvements he's undoubtedly made, and despite moving up in weight, I don't see him hurting Arthur Abraham. Abraham's defensively solid and strong, and I think when Abraham starts putting his punches together, it's going to be clear who the power puncher is, and who is the more effective aggressor in the ring. My prediction at this stage is going to be Arthur Abraham on points in a close but controversial matchup. You know, I know Martin Murray is the kind of guy who's had some bad luck in his career against Felix Sturm, against Sergio Martinez, etc. Fundamentally, I think he's just short of top class. I think there's some gap between, you know, the Carl Froches, the George Groves, the James De Gales of this world and Martin Murray. Whilst he's tough, likeable, and whilst he's a stylish boxer at times, he's just lacking that bit of special something for him to be going out there and beating the Arthur Abrahams of this world. Beating Abraham's an uphill struggle. He's a very experienced operator. He's really perfected his style. And at this stage, I don't see Martin Murray being the kind of guy to do it. You know, losing this fight isn't a disaster for him. There's lots of domestic matchups out there, and there's still stuff for him to do. But yeah, I'd be picking Arthur Abraham in this fight. Let me know your thoughts. How do you see it going? Many thanks for watching.